Let me start with a bit of background about myself. My name's Joe, and I'm 54 years old. My wife, Lisa, is the same age. We've been married for 31 years, and she's been working as a registered nurse at the local hospital. As for me, I've been with a home building company since I was 18. We've got 2 kids, both grown and out of the house, living their own lives in their 20s. Back in our mid-40s, Lisa and I decided to chase her lifelong dream of running a cozy bed and breakfast. It wasn't a quick decision. We spent years casually searching for the perfect spot. Eventually, we stumbled upon a 5-acre property with a house that dates back to the 1870s. The place had a rich history, once owned by a prominent farming family that ran a thriving agricultural business in the area. Over the years, though, the family sold off chunks of their land, and the house itself fell into neglect. Our town has been booming lately, thanks to its natural beauty drawing in tourists. The farmland along the highways is quickly getting bought up for development, but this property, tucked away from all the noise, felt like a hidden gem. We decided to take the leap and bought it. Since then, Lisa and I have been restoring the house room by room, determined to bring it back to its former glory from 150 years ago, and make a living out of it in the process. Lisa took the reins on decorating, tackling each room as I finished the renovations. She also took care of the mortgage while I handled the physical work, paying for materials and hiring professionals when absolutely necessary. Most of it, though, I've done myself. Being handy has its perks. The last few years have been a whirlwind. The housing market exploded, and we were working non-stop, sometimes feeling like we could have used an 8th day in the week. The money was great, until last year. That's when the pandemic hit, and everything came to a screeching halt. My work was paused, and then material shortages started making projects impossible. Meanwhile, Lisa was on the front lines at the hospital for 18 exhausting months. During that time, she was practically living at work. They had to stay at the hospital for weeks on end, sleeping in shared rooms with other staff. To say her team got close during this time would be an understatement. Lisa even gave up her time off so younger staff members could be with their families, which is just the kind of person she's always been. She's always gone above and beyond for others, even if it meant sacrificing her own needs. But the toll of those months changed her. Watching so many people fight for their lives on ventilators and witnessing so much loss, she wasn't the same after that. She became distant, and our sex life completely vanished. I tried to bring it up, but she always brushed it off, saying she just didn't feel that way anymore. Still, we stayed focused on the house. We even took trips to Amish country, known for its exceptional woodworking and quilting, to find furniture and decor for the bed and breakfast. Just last weekend, we had planned a 3-day trip to pick out dining room furniture. I also do barnwood salvaging as a side hustle, so I'd planned to trade some wood for a discount. But on Thursday, my boss called with a big job, saying we finally had the materials to finish a house that had been delayed for months. I told Lisa we'd have to cut the trip short and go just for the weekend. On Friday morning, she told me she'd still go without me, along with some of her coworkers, since there was also a fall festival happening nearby. I didn't think much of it at the time. That night, I went to a local bar and ran into one of her coworkers. I casually asked if she was going on the trip, and she had no idea what I was talking about. That raised my suspicion, so I texted Lisa to check in. I asked if she made it there okay and who all was with her. She named her 2 close friends and someone named Stevie. Now, I'd heard her mention this Stevie before, and I always assumed it was a woman. Just to be sure, I asked her coworker at the bar if she knew who Stevie was. She said no, but mentioned a guy named Steven who worked with them. Lisa came back Sunday afternoon with bags full of stuff, tablecloths, napkins, kitchen towels, and the like. She was showing me everything she bought, but one bag caught my attention. She pulled it out, looked inside, and quickly said, "Oh, not this bag, it's not for us," before stashing it away. That didn't sit right with me. Later, I found the bag hidden in a closet. It was full of decorations for a man cave, sporting the colors of a college team I don't even follow. I confronted Lisa that evening. I asked her again who went on the trip, and she repeated the same 3 names. That's when I pressed her about Stevie, saying we hadn't met. She insisted it was a woman. I pulled out the man cave decorations and mentioned I'd spoken to her coworker at the bar. Then I asked her one more time, who was Stevie? That's when she broke down in tears and admitted the truth. Stevie wasn't a woman. He was a male coworker, and they'd gone on the trip alone. She also confessed they'd been having an affair since last year, starting during the hospital lockdowns. Now, Lisa is staying in one of the finished bedrooms while I keep the master. I'm planning to talk to a lawyer on Monday, but I feel completely lost about what to do next, about the house, the business, or our marriage. From where I stand, she's only sorry she got caught, not for what she did. I asked if she'd end things with Stevie, and she said she wasn't sure. The last couple of weeks have been nothing short of chaotic. Between my day job and my side gigs picking up steam, I've been stretched thin. On top of that, Lisa and I have been at each other's throats. After everything that happened, I decided to consult a lawyer. He listened carefully as I laid out the situation, then advised me to try working things out with Lisa before diving headfirst into legal proceedings. He explained that the house isn't officially a business yet, so we couldn't sell it as one. If we sold it as is, unfinished, we'd be taking a big hit on the price. With over $100,000 sunk into renovations, not to mention the mortgage, it would be a significant loss. On top of that, he'd need to bring in a real estate attorney and maybe even a business lawyer, so legal fees would add up fast. With that in mind, I figured it was worth trying to talk things out with Lisa. But every time I approached her, she was defensive, almost like she was embarrassed about getting caught. She flat out refused to have a conversation. Instead, she dug her heels in and told me to leave the house. I stood my ground and said I wasn't going anywhere. Then she fired back, demanding I move out of the master suite and into one of the smaller bedrooms. Again I refused. Her response? She threatened to pack up all my things, leave them in the foyer, and force me to decide where I'd go. I ended the argument there and decided to take action. I went out to the shed where I store supplies and grabbed one of the keypad door locks I'd planned to install on the guest rooms for when we eventually have customers. I installed it on the master suite door that night, figuring it'd keep the peace. The next day, I headed to work, but my phone blew up with angry messages from Lisa about the lock. When I got home, she was furious, yelling, "How dare you lock me out of my bedroom?" After some heated back and forth, I asked if we could just sit down and talk. She finally agreed, and later that evening, we had a long overdue conversation. I started by telling her how hurt I was to learn about the affair, and how much I wished she'd been honest with me if she was unhappy. She stayed quiet, so I kept going. I told her that, as far as I'm concerned, our marriage is over. She just nodded. Then I dropped the bombshell. I'd been to see a lawyer. The look on her face told me she hadn't expected that. I explained what the lawyer had said about trying to reach an agreement before things got messy. Our biggest asset is the house, and if we sell it now, we'll take a huge loss. That's when she hit me with a smug smile and said, "I can prove I've been paying the mortgage, so the house is mine." I shook my head and set her straight. The attorney explained that the house is a marital asset. Both our names are on the mortgage. Then I pulled out 2 binders. Over the years, I've kept meticulous records of every penny I've spent on renovations, organizing receipts by room. What started as a casual habit turned into a detailed log of how much money I've poured into this place. When I laid all that out, it was clear she hadn't been expecting me to be so prepared. Turns out, she hasn't even consulted a lawyer yet. That's when I proposed a compromise. We live peacefully under the same roof, finish the house together, and set up the bed and breakfast. Once it's operational, she could buy me out of the business. But Lisa wasn't having it. She doubled down, insisting I leave. And then she dropped a bomb of her own. If I don't go, she plans to move Stephen into the house. That cut deep, like a knife to the gut. I had to step away to gather my thoughts. After grabbing a glass of water, I came back to the table and laid down my terms. If I see him in this house or anywhere on this property, I'll start dismantling everything I've done. Every nail, every screw, every fixture, I'll take it all out. I won't destroy them, because I own them, but I'll replace everything with the cheapest salvage I can find. Think about it. Take all the advice you want from whoever's feeding you this dime store wisdom. Let me know. We didn't talk for several days after that. Then, yesterday, Lisa came to me and said she wanted to talk again. She had spoken to our kids, which I'd already done myself. I called each of them to explain the situation. According to Lisa, our daughter suggested we finish the house and start the business together, like I'd proposed. After that, I could move out while retaining my 50% ownership. Lisa could run the B&B with the help of a couple of employees, maybe even hire someone for yard work and give herself the occasional day off. I told her I'd think about it but made it clear my stance on Stephen hasn't changed. He's not stepping foot in this house. Now I have another appointment with my lawyer. The reality is, we probably won't be ready to open the business until 2023. There's still so much work to do, landscaping, finishing the exterior, and on top of that, figuring out a living arrangement. The room I'm staying in now is one of the guest rooms we plan to rent out. My wife and I had been discussing how we'd divide our assets. Both of our lawyers agreed that it'd be best if we reached some sort of mutual agreement before things escalated further. In the middle of one of those conversations, it happened, the stroke. 1 minute, I was sitting there, trying to work through the logistics, and the next, I was on the floor. Thankfully, Lisa's a nurse. She noticed right away that something wasn't right. She asked me if I was okay, but before I could even answer, I collapsed. Without missing a beat, she called 911 and told them she was certain I was having a stroke. I spent a week in the hospital, followed by time in rehab. When I finally got home, Lisa had taken a leave of absence from work to care for me. I'm convinced I wouldn't have made the kind of recovery I have without her constant support during those first critical months. By January, once she felt I was stable enough to handle things on my own, Lisa went back to her job. On the days she works those long 12-hour shifts, our kids stop by to check in on me, which has been a huge help. As for Stevie, I honestly don't know if she's still seeing him. She spent 2 solid months at my side, and during that time, it seemed like her focus was entirely on me and my recovery. That said, she's taken a couple of 3-day getaways since then, so I can't help but wonder if things between them are still going on. For now, though, any talk of divorce has been put on the back burner. I want to thank everyone who's reached out, whether through comments or DMs, asking for updates. It means a lot. I'm doing better, though it's been a tough road. Walking is still a challenge, so going back to work just isn't in the cards for me right now. I'll have to figure out something else down the line, but for the moment, I'm just focused on getting stronger. Here's where things stand now. I've officially filed for divorce. For a while, I started to doubt my decision, mostly because of everything I went through with my health. During my recovery, Lisa was incredibly kind and supportive, which made me lose sight of the bigger picture. But once I was back on my feet and managing to take care of myself again, the reality hit me hard. Lisa, or I guess I should call her my soon-to-be ex-wife, was taking those weekend trips once or twice a month. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but now it's clear she was spending that time with Stevie, either at his place or somewhere they'd gone together. Our kids caught on pretty quickly, too. My daughter, Emily, hasn't been shy about voicing her feelings. She's been all over Lisa about it, and sadly, their relationship has completely fallen apart. It's tough to watch, but I understand where Emily's coming from. My son, Josh, also disapproves of what his mom did, but he's chosen to keep the peace and maintain contact with her. Lisa and I have had some conversations about the divorce and dividing our assets. Luckily, we've agreed to keep things amicable. The truth is, neither of us can afford to buy the other out of the house and business. So, we decided to list the property with a business broker, at least, I think that's what you'd call him. He found a company, something like VRBO or Airbnb, that made us an excellent offer. Once the divorce is finalized in the next month or two, we'll both move on, and the sale of the property will go through. It feels like a bittersweet ending to everything we worked so hard for, but it's the only path forward. As for me, my health isn't fully back to where it was, and honestly, it might never be. That said, I'm lucky to have an amazing boss who's been incredibly supportive. He's brought me into a new role as a project manager, which is a much better fit for me given my current limitations.